give them a better chance to get hired and to be able to show somebody what they're passionate about and where their talent lies. So that's the overview of what Intern Sushi is, and I'm super excited to answer your questions. So I ran through that quickly, but I'm going to jump through and go through some of the questions now. So feel free to ask me anything in more depth about Intern Sushi and exactly why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it and all of that. So I'll jump in and answer the first question, which is what inspired me to power through and become an entrepreneur. And I'll answer that by saying I've always been a problem solver, and I started my career in the film industry because I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to produce movies. I wanted to be able to really move somebody by way of emotion and to be able to really do that in a visual manner. And so I entered the film business out of college. I went to Emerson in Boston, and I moved out to LA to enter the film business. And from there, I started as an assistant and climbed my way up to develop and produce my own movies. And it was through that I realized that all you need to do to be an entrepreneur is continuously put out fires and solve problems. And that was a great segue into starting my own company and ultimately going on to handle big obstacles and figuring out how we can break tradition and create a new product and go out to really change the way people think about a process or about an approach to something that they have a typical way of handling. So that was sort of how I got into the entrepreneur world, and it really fits me, and it's something that I'll continue to do forever because I love to really dig in and solve a problem. So love that question. So thanks guys for chiming in, and I see them pulling up. So there's some really great questions coming up. So one of them is, well, this is an interesting one, and I knew it would be asked, so I'll go ahead and answer it delicately. So is there still a place for unpaid internships, and how can we protect ourselves from lawsuits? So what I'll tell you is that I'm not a lawyer, and I won't tell you exactly how to protect yourself, but what I will tell you on the unpaid internship topic is that there are various ways that an employer can go about hosting internships. And on Intern Sushi specifically, we see companies doing everything from paid to college credit. And college credit has obviously been the new wave way to really be able to bring young talent into your company, because colleges now, 60% of universities are requiring someone to have an internship. So the internship has really become the entry-level job. And I think that while the media is looking at particular situations that are arising and trying to bring extra light to them, what they're not looking at is how valuable an internship is, because you never have an opportunity otherwise to get into a company and to really learn from other people's mistakes. And the internship world, obviously, I built my whole business around it, is because I believe that as great of a college education and a knowledge we can obtain, and the knowledge that we can obtain from books, there's just nothing that can displace being within an office and really being able to see how employees handle particular situations and how your boss looks at, or your boss or the boss of somebody within the company looks at their work. And you're really able to look at others around you and decide how you can reposition yourself to be either better than them, or how you can learn from their mistakes to be able to better what you do down the line and obtain obviously bigger opportunities. So that's that one. Let's see. How do you manage the customer funnel specifically for your business? So what's interesting about Intern Sushi in particular, our customer ranges across the gamut. So we have the high school seniors, juniors and seniors who are entering the workforce and are ready to go into college, but still know that they need to obtain opportunities and really begin to direct their focus as they enter college and decide on a major and decide their course of their career, all the way through the undergraduates, the graduates, the vocational school students, and of course the unemployed. The internship market is huge, and it can really run from, as I said, the high school student all the way even to the career changer. So for us specifically, we have a big market when we're going to promote our business and when we're looking to obtain new users. So we have to create different marketing initiatives that tackle different markets. So one interesting thing is that we have a big market of parents, because parents are obviously a big decision maker when it comes to college and when it comes to, of course, an intern or a college student spending their summer interning in any various environment. So what's interesting about our business model on Intern Sushi is that it's a completely free service where a user can upgrade to premium. And the premium gives you competitive advantages and presentation advantages. Is sort of how we bucket the two. The competitive advantages are that we give you a 24-hour head start on applying to positions. We give you the ability to send targeted videos to specific companies. So you're able to say, okay, I see that Billboard has just posted a new marketing position, and Billboard is a company I've always wanted to work for, but I see that their listing is expiring in 5 days and the countdown for the number of applications they're accepting is going down. 10 applications, 9, 8, 7, and you really want to get in the door to apply to Billboard. So you go and say, okay, I'm going to upgrade to premium and get my foot in the door. But now Intern Sushi gives you another advantage, which is that we allow you to send a targeted video to Billboard. So if Billboard can control the number of applications they're willing to receive, so say they set their application limit at 10, and now you're going through, you can say, okay, now I want to send a targeted video to Billboard to make sure that I'm one of the 10 that gets brought in for an interview first. So in sending that targeted video, that advantage will move you to the top. Other presentation advantages are the ability to turn your profile into a personal website instantly. So it strips our navigation and allows you to use your profile in various other ways. So that's the benefit of Intern Sushi and our transformation off of the paper resume, or of the paper resume, which is to create a digital profile that you can use to apply to internships through the site, but also be able to use as a personal website wherever you want. So in going back to the customer funnel and our marketing initiatives, all of our competitive advantages target not only the user, but hit the parent as well. So when it becomes managing all of our customers, of course, we can't forget about the people who are emotional decision makers and contribute to the decisions of our core audience, which is the 18 to 24 demographic of students. So that was a great question. I loved it. How do you feel about profiles versus the traditional paper resume? Do employers want to see pictures and multimedia? That's a great question, because it's the whole reason we launched our business. So the paper resume is a method to literally get you stuck in a pile. We've used it forever and ever and ever, and it won't tell your story, and it ends up being a compilation of keywords that you look up online that tell you that if you use these keywords and you list these as your skills, you'll get pulled out of a pile. But what ends up happening is college career centers are telling students to send up to 30 resumes a semester just to have the chance to hear back from somebody. So we decided to tackle that problem head on by creating a digital profile that allows you to rise above the resume and then send that right through our site so that you can track every step of that application. So you know when it's gone to an employer, you know when they're communicating back with you. You don't have to send 30 and just wait and wait and wait and ultimately pray that you'll hear back from one. On Intern Sushi, we've had amazing statistics of placing over 5,000 interns, and of those interns, we've seen so many students write messages to us saying, I've never heard back from almost any company I've applied to, but on your site, I have almost too many opportunities. So I'm having now to be picky and decide where I want to go. And that was the entire philosophy and foundation in which we built Intern Sushi, and we built the branding of Be Picky, which is to completely reinvent and flip on its head the idea that you should take any opportunity that you're given, because we believe that in having a choice and in creating this amazing profile that showcases your entire story, you'll be given more opportunities, and therefore you'll have the chance to be picky, which in the past and in the long tradition of the hiring game that has become a nightmare for a lot of people, you don't really have that choice. And so that's what we're doing as a brand. Let's see. What else have we had? How did you manage being on so many lists? Did you pitch them? How did they find you? That's an interesting question. And I think that I'm obviously, of course, honored to be on Forbes and Fortune and a lot of amazing lists. And I think that what is interesting and what a lot of entrepreneurs, they try to achieve that press because it's great press for not only myself, but my company. But what I think is the best way to approach trying to receive that recognition is to do something different. And we see a lot of ideas come into play, and everyone has a brilliant idea. And what's interesting is a lot of people will say to me, oh, Intern Sushi is such a great idea. How did you come up with that? And I said, I just solved a problem. I began as an intern, and I really had run into so many obstacles to have somebody look at what I was beyond that piece of paper, and to see that I went to Emerson College and I had an insane passion for television and film. And so I created something that would allow myself to have more opportunities. And that's what you get recognized for, is simply trying to tackle problems and executing. And execution is a big point of topic. And I see somebody else asking about qualities of great entrepreneurs. And I think being able to execute is one of the most important skill sets you can have, because anybody can have an idea and anybody can say, oh, we should try to do this or we should try to do that. But very few people actually take the first step, which is planning a strategy for how to execute. And execution isn't just going out and trying to put your idea into action. It's having the ability and having the foresight to be able to say, okay, I'm going to try to execute on an idea, but once I try something, being able to turn around and analyze what you did, what mistakes you made, what you could have done better, and being able to go back and really pivoting from there and moving your idea forward in a different way. Because most ideas just don't work when you first try them, and they turn into a ton of different ideas as they run their course. And so it's really important as an entrepreneur to be able to go back and try something new and completely reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. Let's see, what else? Why the name Intern Sushi? Okay, so that's one of my favorite questions because, of course, I get asked it all the time, and we definitely we don't have a very traditional name. And the reason for Intern Sushi is that when I sat down and said, okay, I'm really trying to reinvent a process, and I'm really trying to make pickiness the main attribute of what I want interns to focus on as they go through our site, it became about the need to be picky about your internships as you are about your sushi. And when I first came up with the name, I looked through and said, okay, what do I think the internship process needs? And I thought of sophistication, innovation, variety, transparency. The hiring process needed that raw ability and that honesty, and really inject a transparency into everything we do, both on the intern side and on the employer side. And so that's where the Intern Sushi name came from, is out of pickiness and about process. How did you find your co-founder? So my co-founder is film and television producer Mark Gordon, and also a fellow entrepreneur, Richard Gelb. And what happened is I sort of found them along my journey to continue to solve problems. As I mentioned earlier, I began in the film business, and Mark Gordon was my boss. So I was a 21-year-old, wide-eyed, bright-eyed, just one overachiever. And I sat in his office and I worked as his assistant, and I did every menial task. I did every administrative task. And as I grew within the company, I began to just constantly figure out problems and take on new initiatives and get them done. And a couple years later, when I was 23, he promoted me to a creative executive, not because I was in line for a position or not because I deserved that, but because I gave him no choice. I was setting up film projects far before I became an executive, and he really had no choice but to put me into his film company because I was doing the same job that his executives were doing, and he could see that I was going to make him money. And from there, as I began my film career, I turned around and pitched him on this business. And Mark is someone who has always believed in mentorship, whether it be interns or younger employees. And he jumped on board this idea, and he was like, I love it. I really believe there's a future in really reinventing the hiring game. And from there, he became one of my first investors, and we've used all of our relationships within the film business to fund a company in a very Hollywood type way, which is also an interesting topic. Is a lot of the tech companies in Silicon Beach talk about how it's become trendy to go to Hollywood as a way to invest. But one of the things that is really unique about Intern Sushi, and a big problem we're trying to tackle, is the access issue. Interns all over the country feel like they don't have the opportunity if they don't have an uncle or a mom or a dad who has a connection to someone in these really exclusive industries. They feel like there's no door and there's no way in. And that's one of the big problems that we tried to solve, is create a roadmap and access into the industries that feel really hard to break into. And so knowing that we came from the film business where we did have a lot of relationships, and we could convince the people who never hired online or never really were willing to put themselves out there as a company because they felt like they wanted to live behind a wall, to see that they could find talent in a totally different way. And as a result, we have over 8,000 companies on the site, and they're not only in entertainment. We have 17 different industries, all the way from the film and TVs and advertising and music, the more creative industries, all the way over to finance and politics and nonprofit and hospitality. And we've really been able to do that by bringing on companies who have never hired online before and who are really innovative and really want to try something different. And I attribute that to my start in film and my growth and the people that I brought on to advise me and really say that while everyone says not to go this route, you should try it and don't look back. And so that was really a great way for me to start, and a unique spot that Intern Sushi sits in the tech community in Los Angeles. Let's see. Feel free to ask me any hard ones. I'm not shy. I'll give you any information, and I love doing these things, and I love asking other entrepreneurs these things, or anyone else, because it's really interesting, and you get a great opportunity to really pick somebody's brain. So feel free to ask me anything. Oh, here's a good one. So do you have a technical background? Did you have a technical background to get Intern Sushi off the ground? And how do you find the right talent to help you get your site off the ground? So what's interesting is I had zero technical ability per se. I was not a developer. I couldn't code, but what I could do is design. And I've always been obsessed with Photoshop and After Effects and Final Cut, and I've always been a creator. And I think that ultimately, when you start to do something, you have to have a vision, and you have to be able to create, and you have to want to learn more and more and more and more. And one of the things that was really helped me, and I used to my advantage, was how willing I was to get down and dirty in everything that we do as a company, and every step of the way in launching Intern Sushi. So when we first started, I went out to find the best graphic designer I could find, because I knew that before I built the site, the branding alone is what was going to set this apart. And as you can tell from Intern Sushi as a whole, is that the front end of our site is the big priority. And our team is structured by way of majority front-end developers and then a couple of back-end developers, and the front end being obviously the visual look and interface of the site, and that is really important to us. So I started by trying to find a great graphic designer who could really bring the vision and look of what I was trying to accomplish to life. And I said, okay, what are some apps and what are some websites that I really admire? And I went out and found the creator of the app Sticky Notes, which was one of the first big post-it apps where you could take notes on your phone. And I always believed that that was one of the cleanest looks around. And I went to him and I brought him on to do some logo design initially for us. And then from there, I was just very deep within his work with him, constantly giving him notes. And we ended up creating something together. And then he ultimately came on board full time to run all of our design and be our full brand art director. And from there, we ended up hiring a tech firm to start. So what's interesting to talk about technology and how to really create a website and get it off the ground is that you can take multiple routes. So we have heard a lot of debate, and you see a lot of debate online between hiring a tech firm versus building in-house. And what I did, knowing that I had a really big idea that everyone was going to try to accomplish as well, and there was going to be no shortage of competition, is I knew that I had to get my product off the ground very, very, very quickly. So in doing that, I chose to start with a firm so that I had a core team that already had the necessary front end and back end developers. I also knew that I would have video experience within that firm to be able to quickly get an MVP off the ground. And from there, I was able to launch in about 3 to 4 months. And now that we've been live for about 18 months, I'm beginning to build my team in-house. And the best advice I can give on not having technical experience or any sort of experience prior is that you don't need experience. I don't believe that you need experience to do anything necessarily. You just need to position the most talented minds around you to be able to teach you everything you need to know, because you're only as good as the team that you have. And building a team within a startup is the most important thing you could do. And it was the same in film, is that when we're producing a movie, if we don't hire the best art director or the best designer or the best director for that matter, or production design, the whole feel of our movie is not going to rise together. And so the team is the most important. And when it came to my technical knowledge and not having as much, I just had to position the people around me who were going to accomplish it and teach me. And now I've come certainly a long way, and I direct my product team, and I can now code and I design. And only 2 years ago, I literally did not have much tech experience. And there are a ton of courses online that can teach you overnight how to do a million things. So I suggest if you feel like having a tech background or knowledge is something that is standing in your way, don't dismiss that idea, because you can absolutely do anything even if you haven't had much experience in that area. Okay, here's a great one. What advice would you give millennials who are entering the job market on how to work in a professional environment? So that's a great question, because as Intern Sushi goes, you can imagine that we would have a lot of interns working in our office. And it's really important to us that we always mentor young talent, and we always give them an opportunity to be a part of a growing new company and contribute their ideas so that they can see how greatly they can impact what we'll go on to do. And so the best advice I can give in working in a professional environment is to make sure that you're respectful and you're contributing in a respectful way. And that doesn't necessarily mean being nice. It means being considerate and thinking before you do something. So one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen millennials do is be so excited that they don't stop to think about process. When they work with me directly, they will be so excited that they have a new idea that every 5 minutes they'll send me an email. Now, obviously, I have so many emails in my inbox, and I have so much to do on a daily basis and weekly basis that constantly being inundated with a new idea that then they turn around and say, oh, wait, scratch my old idea. Actually, this is the one I wanted you to look at. That just kills me, because instead of me looking at one unified idea that you sent me that had all of the detail and all of the background and all of the effort that you put into it, I'm now just being bombarded with ideas here and there, and I can't properly evaluate what might have been a great effort on your part. Instead, I'm just annoyed and you've put unnecessary work on my plate. So I see a lot of millennials do that, and I know that it's out of excitement and enthusiasm, but make sure that when you're going into a company, and maybe an intern or an entry-level employee, or any level for that matter, you just want to make sure that the way you're communicating with people doesn't add work to their plate, because then you're not doing your job, you're making them do your job. And that's not going to help anyone long term. Let's see. Did you experience any scaling problems as you've grown to over 8,000 companies listing internships? That's a great question. So what can we learn? The question is, what can we learn from growing quickly to over 8,000 companies using our product? And that's a great question, because scaling has a lot of different issues that you can run into. It's not only the technical issues, but it's the ability to very quickly manage customer service and the ability to be able to navigate issues that they're having with your product and be able to prioritize that feedback and execute accordingly. And so what we've seen, interestingly enough, with these 8,000 companies, and what's been quite complicated for us, is that they range from the smallest company of 2 employees all the way up to the Paramounts and the MTVs and the Sephoras and all of the big companies that have thousands and thousands of employees. And so we've had to deal with the questions and the feedback from all different levels of companies. And some have come and said, okay, my inbox of applications is unbelievably overwhelming. I have 300 applications to deal with, and I can't seem to navigate through how to view the first one in comparison to number 300. And what is really interesting about that is, in testing and in beginning to launch, we had to really be able to test the load of what we would run into, and we never got to a test with over 300 applications in at once. And in comparing that as a design, so the look of the dashboard and how a company manages applications, we are juggling what it looks like for a company who has 4 applications to a company that has 300, and they all have to be able to use the same one. And we have to give the features that the big companies need to be able to properly sift through all of them in a deep way, all the way down to the 2-person company who, even though they're fielding less applications, it doesn't mean they don't have as many questions. And what's interesting about scaling it for us is that we tried to tackle and change tradition. So not only do we have to deal with the overall scaling of our business, but we have to deal with the fact that we are basically walking into companies and saying, throw out everything that you've ever done, throw out your entire process. So these back-end systems, these tracking systems you're using, all of the paper resumes that are coming into your inbox, throw it all out and move it to a new idea that looks like this. And what's interesting is we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the look and feel of our site and how innovative it is and how it just feels more fun to use. And that's great. But the problem is, when you're running the gamut of HR, who might be a 22-year-old employee all the way up to somebody who has been in the business for 35 years, it's really hard to please everyone. So even though we, for the intern, wanted to take a very app-like approach, wanted to really play with responsive design and a lot of the new technical look and feel features that we're seeing come up on different websites, we had to go and say, okay, do we need to sacrifice some of that on the company side? Because the company hiring managers may not be the 18-year-old kid who is willing to try anything and is willing to accept the new way of looking at a product. And so that's been a big struggle for us, is being able to scale and adapt to a user that could be 18 on one side and then a user that could be 65 and have had 30 years of experience in hiring, and they will dismiss us rather quickly. But we've been able to obviously walk in with a very unique brand, and that's how we've been able to grow to over 8,000 companies in our first year. How often do you make changes / updates to the site, and what tools do you do to manage the continual work of running a site like Intern Sushi? So we make changes daily. One of the things that has been really important to myself and our product team is that we release new iterations of our product every night. So a lot of companies like Facebook and a lot of different websites will put out a release, which means that they'll bring new features from their staging site over to their live site. And typically we see a lot of companies releasing once a week, because that way you have the ability to test quickly and get out a product that is workable and that is usable by the majority of your users, if not all of them. What we have done is tried to lower that schedule. So we've released every 3 days so that we can get new fixes and new features out to our user base, who is constantly, on the intern side at least, looking to us to launch new things and to add to our profiles and to give them more tools they need to really be able to stand out. And so sometimes we'll even release every night, which means that if we release a new feature at 3 in the morning when the majority of our users aren't on our product, it means that we need to be testing a lot of those features between the hours of 11 and 3. So what this will tell you is that when you run a company and when you run a startup and you're on a product team, you're not sleeping, and you shouldn't necessarily expect to sleep so much. I mean, sleep is very good, so I don't say not to do it. I definitely wish I could do more of it, but when it comes to releasing features on the site, we have to make sure that we test, and in trying to release very quickly to keep up with the trends and make sure our users are happy. It becomes a balance of innovation and making sure that we're putting out a great idea. And how do we manage the work of running a site? So that's a great question. And I do want to give a plug to one of my favorite new organization sites, Trello.com. If you haven't seen Trello, you should check it out. Trello is a great project management tool to be able to keep track of any process. So it's completely customizable to any project within a company, such as managing your product team and your tech focus. So we're able to keep all of our design features, all of the bugs within our site, all of the overall roadmap of where we're headed as a product on different boards to be able to track them. And organization within a product team is of utmost importance, because you have so many people working on essentially one pool of code that you need to make sure that everyone is communicating and everyone knows the next priority. So Trello is a great source of organization, not only for product focused individuals, but for marketing and for any departments. I use it to run my whole company, and I don't really know what I would do without it. So that's a great plug for them. So everyone should go check it out. Here's a really good one. With a male co-founder, what female role models or mentors do you have in the business? That's a great question, because I've always been somebody who has always found celebrity to be the executives within a field. And it's interesting, we are preparing, and I won't go into it too specifically because we're about to launch this in the next couple of weeks, but we're preparing to launch our version of an influencer program, which will essentially shine light on the career stories in a very Intern Sushi-like manner of the people within industries that we admire and that we look up to. And for me, it's not necessarily, a female mentor has not necessarily come in the package of somebody I know. It's come through the package of people I respect. So when I look at my career and what I aspire to be, of course, creating change and being able to learn to consistently manage better and be able to handle a big round of employees. So I look to people who have really done that before, like the Anne Sweeneys of the world and the Stacy Snyder who runs DreamWorks, and all of the people who have really paved the way within an industry for themselves. And that's always important, to look above you, but also look to your peers. So there are a lot of amazing female entrepreneurs, the Birchbox founders, Yael Cohen, who runs Fuck Cancer, and a lot of great female entrepreneurs who are dealing with the same problems I'm dealing with. And so being able to look to them and talk to people like that has really contributed to, for me, being able to see a solution to a problem that I may not have seen before. Let's see. Where do you think video is heading when it comes to applying for an internship or a job? So I think video is the future. I think a combination and a collaboration of all digital media is the future, and not necessarily video. What's interesting is that a lot of the career sites that are online now, we're seeing them attach video, and they're not integrating video necessarily in a way that makes it easier for the employer. So the video question is interesting because we can go as an applicant to an internship or a job, we can go create any video that we want. But if we don't have an easy way to give it to an employer to digest, that video will never be seen by the people we want to see it. And so that's where Intern Sushi has really tried to pave the way for the future of video, is to integrate it into a profile that is easily digestible and viewable by a hiring manager, because that's the ultimate goal of who you want to see it, but also to place it on a public profile in which anyone can discover your talent. So what's one of my favorite things to do is get up in the morning or late at night and just do a blank search for interns who join our site. And I'm always messaging them to tell them what I love about their profiles, to give them that encouragement and that motivation to keep going, to keep putting themselves out there. But also, when I discover new profiles and I can see the skill set and I can see the personality of the people who live on our site, I go to message them and say, hey, I see that you're a video editor or that you're a graphic designer. We're focusing on this project within Intern Sushi. Is this something that you want to be a part of? And I've brought some 25, 30 kids onto, or users of our site, onto various internal projects so they can contribute marketing wise or technically to something that we're doing, not necessarily in a full internship, but in a contractor way. And what that goes to show is that creating video and being able to affect someone emotionally by your energy and your passion is what ultimately will go on to change the hiring process. And so the answer is video will ultimately be a big part of how we land opportunities in any way, shape, or form, whether it be employment or whether it be connections to other individuals. So it's not going away. Let's see, how have you organized your company based off the fact that you have a number of different customers, students, parents, and employers? So that's a great question. When you are creating a company that has multiple demos to target, I see a lot of entrepreneurs get caught in the who do I focus on first? And I love to answer this question because I wish it was something that somebody told me. Luckily, I went with my gut and I went after what I thought was what needed to come first, and luckily it was right for Intern Sushi. So for us, we are of course tackling interns and companies, and when I first launched the site, I had to decide, okay, was I going to go out there and get hundreds of intern profiles and then go to companies with all the intern profiles and say, look at the kids I have on my site, or was I going to go to the companies and say, can you post your positions and then let the interns follow? And so I decided that the chicken before the egg, in the chicken before the egg scenario, it was companies for us. So I went to my relationships with companies within the film industry to launch, and I asked them to join the site and create company profiles and wait for a few months until I had an intern pool. Now, I was lucky enough to be able to convince them with all of the visual branded materials that I had on Intern Sushi that this was worth a try. And then I let the interns follow. And now it's a big balancing act between growing our intern base and growing our company pool, because now that our company pool is 8,000 companies and what we expect will get up to 12,000 by the end of the year and then beyond, as then we grow that intern pool, the competition is going to get much more fierce. So right now, statistically, 1 in 8 people land an internship. And that's because obviously the market is vying for a smaller number of positions. What Intern Sushi is looking to do as a whole is increase that number of potential internships by introducing employers to the internship concept in a way that feels easy and much more reliable and much less time consuming to tackle. So a lot of companies that will contact say, oh, we don't have an internship program because we don't even know how to approach it. And that's where we then give them the information and we take them through the process and we show them how greatly it can impact the intern themselves, but also the company as a whole. And we're able to bring on companies who have never hired before or never believed that they would hire interns. And from there, as we began to grow the company base and the intern base, we then turned to parents and said they were our ticket to the rest of the intern pool. And we have many initiatives that focus solely on parents. And that's a really big factor for us. And so you just have to balance who you're going after first, and also who your site is facing and who the front end of your site is built for. And we made the decision to face the homepage to the intern and to not try to sell, are you a parent, are you an employer, are you an intern, but sell the benefits of the intern, because they are the talent that will drive the companies to come after them, and they are the talent that their parents, of course, stand behind. And so that's what we went through first, but that was a big decision on deciding who we should go after behind the scenes and who we should go after publicly. Let's see. So how do you manage email? Are you an inbox zero believer, and what tools do you use? So I love that question more than anything, because I am definitely a zero inbox believer, but not a zero inbox achiever. And it's a very, very hard thing to do. And a lot of my employees make fun of me because every week I have a new system of how I tackle my inbox and how I connect all of my mobile devices and how I connect all of my computers to be able to track my one to-do list. And so I can give you some insight, and maybe you want to jump on board. I've gone through every possible process of how to manage my to-do list and my inbox. And what I'm currently doing is I am using this great app, AnyDo, which connects via a Chrome extension to your inbox. And I have to give a shout out to my employee, Lauren Antonelli, because I pushed away this AnyDo idea for so long. But after I've used every possible app, I went back to this one. And what's great about it is that within Chrome, I can immediately throw anything from my inbox right to my to-do list. And every morning it will pop up on the app on my phone of, let's talk about what you want to do today, and organize at what times I want it to remind me of what to do when. And I literally wouldn't be able to navigate without it. But most likely in a couple of weeks, I will change that process and go to something else. So you just have to try to find what's right for you, and organization and being able to not get overwhelmed by your inbox is definitely something that everyone should try to achieve at all times. Let's see. So a quick question that I'll answer is, what is Silicon Beach? So for those of you who don't know, I've mentioned it a couple times. Silicon Beach is sort of the overall slang term for tech startups in Los Angeles. Obviously trying to say that we're not in the valley, but we're down near the beach. And so there's really been a growing tech community down in LA. And I actually love being down in LA, because I think that we don't have the hustle of New York and the craziness of the humidity and the subway. And we're not necessarily getting lost in the millions and millions of tech startups that are up in San Francisco. So I think it's sort of a breath of fresh air, oddly enough, to be down here. And we're definitely a growing community with a lot of great exits. And I think that the future is definitely in Los Angeles when it comes to integrating entertainment and the media that's down here. So that's something to definitely keep your eye on. Let's see. So, let's see. I sort of talked about this a little bit, but what's the process of branding a tech company? And I'll just answer that very briefly, and then we'll begin to wrap up, because we're getting close to the end. But branding is really important when you're launching a business, or when you're starting from the ground up to create a presence that you want somebody to get on board, or a train that you want somebody to ride. And what's interesting is a lot of people don't realize that it comes all the way down to the fonts and to the messaging and to every element that comes into play when you're presenting something. And so a lot of times we'll see in design that people forget about spacing, and that sounds really stupid, but when you're laying out something that's going to go on Facebook and you're going to share on Twitter, you need to make sure that everything is spaced correctly to match how you want your brand to be perceived. And when it comes to logo design and colors, making sure that you really come to the decision that you go with based on thought on perception and not what you necessarily like, and making sure that you test and focus group everything. So I'll just touch on that very quickly before we wrap up in just testing in general, because I see a question on that, which is not only testing overall branding, but testing every various feature and stage of your product to get feedback. I don't think that Intern Sushi would be what it is whatsoever if it wasn't for the contribution of our users. And so we have private Facebook groups with a select group of our users, be it interns, companies, and parents. And every day I go in there personally to those Facebook groups and throw up new designs or new ideas or things that I wake up with in the middle of the night and think, oh, is this something that we should do? Or is this something that people would like? And when I go in there personally, I get so much feedback because our user base is seeing how much of myself I'm giving to what is going into our product and how greatly I want them to impact what we're doing, and how I'm building this for the intern and for the company and for the parent to be so proud of their student and not see them on the couch when they graduate. And so it's important that you focus group and that you test and that you're constantly asking your users for feedback and for ideas and to really tell you how they're using your product. And I know that's a big topic and everyone sort of gives you that advice, but it's something that you can't neglect at all because it's really valuable to the future of how you grow your business and how you prioritize what you're going to focus on next. Because if everyone's asking for the same thing, then ding, 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 that's exactly where you want to be. So I think we have one more minute, and it looks like, I mean, there are a lot of questions, but let's see if I could pull one last one. Is just to answer quickly, well, this is a hard one, the steps to launching a startup, but I guess I'll start with, you just have to start. And any idea that you have, just go for it and create a way to begin, which is just writing that email to someone to ask for their opinion, or going through and figuring out how to model your business financially, or to figure out what sort of funding you need that will really be able to set you off on the right course to just begin. So I think that'll do it and wrap us up for today. Thank you so much to everyone who asked these great questions. And you can always reach me on Twitter. I'm always online. My Twitter handle is @Shara Senderoff. And one thing that I always try to remind everyone is that I'm on my site too. So if you go onto Intern Sushi and you find my profile at internsushi.com/Shara Senderoff, you can message me there all the time. So I really enjoyed talking to you guys. And if you have any questions, future questions, reach out to me through Twitter and I'll be happy to answer anything.